Howdy, folks. Welcome to this week's Ag Report. Well, this week, fitting with what we're going to talk about, I'm standing in one of my fields here. I've got my son plowing. He'll be kind of crisscrossing behind me every once in a while. And this particular field, with the topic that we're talking about, it's about a mile from the city limits of town. And so you may think, well, why is that important, or what does that mean towards the topic we're going to talk about? So I was asked about a week or so ago to give testimony to the State House Agriculture and Livestock Committee. Representative Burns out of Johnson County is the chairman of that committee. And he asked me to come in and testify about what is going on in some larger Texas cities with city councils and the legislative law called Right to Farm. So what is going on and what I testified about is just like this field here, someday in the near future will be in the city limits. There are some city councils that are passing rules that are really tying the hands of farmers and ranchers to be able to continue to work land that is inside the city limits. Maybe the city limits has grown and taken in, more land. And what some of those rules and things are, sometimes they are not allowed to raise a crop that's more than 8 or 10 inches tall. Okay, so if you're talking about raising a hay grazer or Sudan or any type of baleable crop, and I'll go to row crops in a second, but the baleable crop for feedstuffs for agriculture, then some will have a 200 to 250 foot setback around the field that must be mowed. So when you're talking about, acreage, it gobbles up a lot of acreage when you're having to mow 250 feet all the way around that property. And so it becomes, useless. You can't do anything with it. There are some that after you bale the hay, okay, you make round bales on it, you have 36 to 48 hours to get that hay off the field. You can no longer stack it on the field. It must be hauled out. For those of y'all that have done hay operations, before, you kind of know you get your tractors. If you have more than one, or if you only have one, you cut and then you rake and then you bale, and you kind of have multiple fields. That may not be the only field that you're doing. So you kind of get in a little bit of a pattern. You get all your hay baled up. Then you get your front end loaders put on, or your forks on the back, and your trailers and that kind of stuff. Then you go into hauling mode or stacking mode, stacking it on the field. It is extremely difficult to bale a field, completely stop what you're doing, and turn around and haul that before you go bale anything else. Some of the other things are like row crops. They don't allow any row crops to be grown in the city limits. So on cattle, they have to keep the pastures mowed. And as you know, we've talked about on here, a lot of times in the spring, you get some spring growth and you get what you call standing forage, or you get some extra, okay? So that when you get times of the year like this, where we're at 100 degrees each day, and we don't get much rainfall, there is a little bit of a storage there in that grass that they can eat down. Well, if you're constantly mowing that grass at 6 inches, there's not much left for them to eat. And so they can run out of forage when it's hot and dry. So those were some of the things that I testified to and shared with the committee that were going on. What they are looking to do, it is right now, it is called an interim charge because the session is not in. They are looking at things that are priority issues going into the next session. So they're kind of working on this, getting information, gathering information so that when the session opens up, they're ready to go. There is a right to farm law on the books that it just needs to be kind of firmed up. It's a little too broad and a little too loosely structured. So what they're kind of looking to do is maybe put some normal agriculture practices or standard agriculture practices kind of on the books as a list, so that when these cities are looking to make some rules, they have something to compare that to and go, okay, these are standard practices. That's what's being done on that property. So then that's okay. So anyways, that's what we've been kind of doing. And, we talk about sometimes it's important to make those trips to Austin or to Washington, D.C. to represent those in agriculture. And like I say, did my very best to represent all of those in Texas agriculture, and hopefully speak for those that are maybe having some troubles in their cities, and try to represent them in a good way. And then we'll see how this comes out next year when the session goes in. So anyways, I hope you all have enjoyed this ag report and this little tidbit of kind of what's going on in agriculture. I think it's important, especially in the times that we're in with the Ukraine war and shortages on wheat and foodstuffs. We need to be able to farm all of the land that we can to produce as much as we can, because much of Texas is dry, much of the Midwest is dry. Crop yields are way down all across the United States. So we need to be able to produce all that we can to try and keep things, one, on the shelves for Americans, but two, being able to still export our extras to feed those around the world. Y'all take care now.